Good evening and welcome to Courts Today by Live Law, your one-step destination for important legal updates. Today we cover Supreme Court's refusal to stay release of the film Udaipur Files, Kerala High Court's ruling on corporal punishment, and a suo motu case on investigative agencies summoning lawyers. This roundup also highlights PILs on child rights, judicial promotion rules, and the controversial Santhara ritual. Let us start. Remember to watch this till the end and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Starting with the update from the Supreme Court, which today refused to urgently hear a petition that sought to block the release of the film Udaipur Files Kanhaiya Lal Taylor Murder. The movie, which is set to be released on the 2022 murder of Udaipur-based Taylor Kanhaiya Lal, is scheduled to release on 11th July. To refresh your memory, Kanhaiya Lal, a tailor in Udaipur, was brutally killed in June 2022 allegedly by two men named Mohammad Riaz and Mohammad Gaus, who later posted a chilling video claiming that it was a revenge for his social media post supporting Nupur Sharma, a BJP spokesperson known for controversial remarks about the Prophet Muhammad. This murder case is still under trial. The National Investigation Agency investigated the case and invoked charges under UAPA and the IPC. Mohammad Javed, one of the accused in the case, filed a petition to halt film's release until the trial is over, arguing that it violates his constitutional right to a free and fair trial under Article 21. The plea was mentioned by Advocate Payali before a bench of Justices Sudhanshu Dhulia and Joy Malia Bagchi. Javed, the petitioner, is the 8th accused and is currently facing trial before the Special NIA Court in Jaipur. But the bench did not grant an urgent hearing. In fact, Justice Dhulia said bluntly, "Let it be released," and directed the counsel to mention the matter before the appropriate bench after the court's reopening on 14th July. The petition argues that the film is communally provocative and that its trailer and promotional materials paint the accused as already guilty. This, the petitioner says, could influence public opinion and ultimately prejudice the court proceedings. Citing Section 6 of the Cinematograph Act, the petition asks the central government to step in and revoke the film's certification, stating that it is necessary in the larger interest of justice. That section, let me tell you, gives the center the power to intervene if a certified film threatens public interest or law and order. Also, in a related update, a petition challenging the release of the film was heard by the Delhi High Court today. The plea filed by Jamaat Ulema-e-Hind President Maulana Arshad Madani and others claims that the film promotes hate speech and could disturb communal harmony. It also questions the Central Board of Film Certification's decision to grant certification to the movie. A division bench of Chief Justice D.K. Upadhyay and Justice Anish Dayal directed the film's producer to arrange a private screening for the counsels representing the petitioners, including senior advocate Kapil Sibal. The direction came after CBFC, through Additional Solicitor General Chetan Sharma, informed the court that all the allegedly offending scenes and dialogues had already been removed from both the film and its trailer before certification. However, Sibal argued that the overall tenor of the film still raises serious concerns and cannot be justified under the garb of free speech if the underlying theme fuels disharmony or targets a particular community. Well, the court has now asked the petitioner's counsel to watch the revised version of the film and return with their observations. The matter will be taken up again tomorrow. Stay tuned. Moving ahead, the Kerala High Court, in an important judgment, has observed that caning or corporal punishment by teachers does not amount to a criminal offence under the current provisions of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015. But this is not a green light to hit students. The court made it clear that this ruling is not an endorsement of such practices. It emphasized that corporal punishment, especially if targeted at vital parts of the body or driven by sadistic intentions, can still attract criminal liability in exceptional cases. The case came up in context of 3 criminal petitions filed against school teachers accused of caning children to discipline them. The question before the court was, can such acts be criminally prosecuted under Indian law as it stands today? Justice C. Jayachandran, in his detailed order, acknowledged that under laws like the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, especially its Section 17, corporal punishment is prohibited in spirit. International treaties like UN Convention on the Rights of the Child also demand that school discipline respect a child's dignity. While these laws discourage or prohibit corporal punishment, they don't expressly define it as a criminal offense under any penal statute like the BNS. And as the court pointed out, unless something is clearly defined as a crime in law, you can't punish someone for it. The court also noted that India follows a dualist legal system, meaning international treaties don't become enforceable until domestically incorporated into law. So even though international conventions frown upon corporal punishment, unless it is specifically criminalized here, prosecution becomes difficult. Amicus curiae advocate Jacob B. Alex stressed how corporal punishment violates a child's fundamental rights to dignity, liberty, and privacy under Articles 14 and 21 of the Constitution and should have no place in modern education. On the other hand, the petitioners argued that teachers cannot be prosecuted under criminal law unless a specific offense is made out. Penal laws must be interpreted strictly, they said, and currently no provision in BNS or the Juvenile Justice Act criminalizes general caning or physical punishment. Well, the High Court has delivered a nuanced verdict saying that teachers should not physically punish children, but as per current laws, such acts are not automatically criminal unless they cross a certain threshold. The verdict now raises a larger policy question. Should India explicitly criminalize all forms of corporal punishment in schools? Do tell us about your opinion in the comment box. The Supreme Court has now stepped in to address the growing concern regarding lawyers being summoned by police or investigative agencies just for giving legal advice to their clients. The controversy around this issue had already been heating up. Recently, if you recall, the Enforcement Directorate issued summons to two senior advocates, Arvind Datar and Pratap Venugopal, asking them to appear in connection with the legal opinions they had rendered. This triggered massive backlash from the legal fraternity, with several bar associations strongly objecting. In response to the widespread criticism, the ED backed down. It withdrew the summons and also issued an internal circular stating that no lawyer is to be summoned without the prior approval of Director of Enforcement Directorate. Now, in a significant development that touches upon the independence of legal profession, the Supreme Court has taken suo motu cognizance of the issue of advocates being summoned by investigative agencies solely for rendering legal opinions or representing clients in criminal investigations. A bench led by Chief Justice of India B.R. Gavai along with Justice K. Vinod Chandran and Justice N.V. Anjaria will hear this case on 14th July. This move by the Supreme Court follows concerns earlier flagged by a bench of Justice K.V. Vishwanathan and Justice N.K. Singh on 25th June in a case involving Gujarat police summoning a lawyer who was representing an accused person. That bench had stayed the notice and made an important observation that compelling advocates to appear before the police for doing their legal duty could seriously undermine the independence of the bar and impair fair administration of justice. Taking note of the larger legal issue here, the matter was referred to the CJI's court, which led to the suo motu case being formally registered. This issue raises fundamental questions about legal privilege, professional autonomy, and the constitutional right to a fair trial. Lawyers are not just mouthpieces for their clients, they are officers of the court, and their independence is essential to the rule of law. Dr. Vikas Divyakirti, public educator and founder of Drishti IAS, is in trouble over his comments made in a YouTube video that allegedly mocked the judiciary. A Rajasthan court has taken partial cognizance of a defamation complaint against Dr. Divyakirti filed by an advocate named Kamlesh Mandolia. The video in question, titled IAS versus Judge Kaun Zyada Taakatwar Hai, has been circulating widely on social media. In the video, Divyakirti can be seen making what the court describes as derogatory and sarcastic comments about judges and the legal system. The complainant has claimed that the video undermines the dignity of judiciary and shakes public confidence. Acting on the complaint, the Ajmer court in an order has said that there is a strong prima facie evidence to proceed. The court observed that video appeared to have been created with malicious intent to gain petty publicity by ridiculing judges and advocates. Divyakirti has been booked under various provisions of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, specifically Section 353 Clause 2, that is charges for public mischief, Section 356 clauses 2, 3 and 4 for defamation, and under Section 66A clause B of the IT Act, which relates to sending offensive content online with intention to cause harm. While these charges have been partially accepted, others were dropped by the court due to lack of supporting evidence. Now, Divya Kirti claims that he has no connection with the channel that uploaded the video and that it was posted without his knowledge or consent by a third party. He also argued that the complaint was legally unsound as the complainant was not personally defamed and lacked locus standi. Well, the court was not convinced. It noticed that there is no evidence Divya Kirti or his institute ever took steps to object or to remove the video, despite it being publicly circulated in his name and widely attributed to his coaching brand. The court observed that in today's digital learning environment, educators, especially those of high standing, must be aware that their speeches are recorded, monetized, and distributed online. Further, while acknowledging the importance of freedom of speech, the court clarified that this right is not absolute. Citing Supreme Court precedents like the Arundhati Roy and Prashant Bhushan contempt cases, it reiterated that speech that lowers dignity of the judiciary or spreads public distrust cannot be protected under Article 19(1)(a). The court added that if Dr. Divya Kirti believed that he was misrepresented, he could have expressed regret or taken corrective steps, but he chose not to. The court has now listed this matter for 22nd July, directing Divya Kirti to appear in person. It has also asked the complainant to submit a list of witnesses. The Madhya Pradesh High Court has issued notice to centre and state governments on a public interest litigation that seeks to ban the Jain ritual of Santhara for minors and persons of unsound mind. Santhara is a religious practice observed by some members of the Jain community involving a voluntary and gradual fasting unto death for spiritual purification. This case is about a 3-year-old girl in Indore who allegedly died after being made to undergo the ritual by her own family. The PIL has been filed by a social worker following media reports that the parents had not only made their daughter fast till death, but later sought entry in the Golden Book of World Records, recognizing her as the youngest person to have performed Santhara. The petition argues that the child could not have possibly understood the process, let alone give consent. A division bench of Justices Vivek Rusia and Binod Kumar Dwivedi has now sought responses from multiple authorities, including Union Home Ministry, Law Ministry, NHRC, and top officials in Madhya Pradesh, and asked them to reply within 4 weeks. The plea contends that while Santhara is a recognized religious ritual under Article 25, it must be performed voluntarily and consciously by an adult. Forcing a child or a mentally unfit person into it, the petitioner urges, amounts to a violation of fundamental rights and possibly criminal conduct. In this case, the petitioner is also seeking legal action against the family involved and broader guidelines prohibiting the practice for those unable to give consent. The matter now raises serious legal and ethical questions at the intersection of religious freedom, child rights, and criminal law, and the court's upcoming decisions may well set an important precedent. In a key development, the Delhi High Court today disposed of a public interest litigation that sought open access, both physical and virtual, to the proceedings of the Central Information Commission. The petition filed by a group of journalists, including Saurav Das, asked the court to ensure that members of the public and media can attend CIC hearings in person and online. The Central Information Commission, let me tell you, is a statutory body established under the Right to Information Act of 2005 to ensure transparency and accountability in functioning of public authorities. So when you file RTIs seeking information from central government departments or public bodies and either don't get a response or are dissatisfied with the reply, you can file an appeal or complain with the Central Information Commission. The CIC is the top body set up under the RTI Act to hear such matters. It ensures that government offices are transparent and accountable, and if necessary, it can order information to be released and even penalize officials for non-compliance. While hearing the petition to allow open access to its proceedings, Delhi High Court, led by Chief Justice D.K. Upadhyay and Justice Anish Dayal, refused, saying that this is a complex issue involving major infrastructural requirements. The bench noted that an earlier 2016 CIC order had already stated that hearings are ordinarily open to the public, and therefore there was no need for a fresh declaration by the court on that front. As for physical access, the court has allowed the petitioners to approach the CIC directly. But when it came to virtual access, appearing for the government, Additional Solicitor General Chetan Sharma informed the court that a similar matter is already pending before the Supreme Court, dealing specifically with the issue of virtual hearing facilities at CIC. Given this, the High Court advised the petitioners to seek impleadment before the Supreme Court to avoid duplicity of proceedings. The bench also expressed practical concerns such as how many people CIC hearing rooms can accommodate and the need for massive infrastructure investment if virtual access is to be given to the public. So while the demand for transparency in quasi-judicial hearings is legitimate, the court left the issue of public and journalist access, especially virtually, to be decided by the CIC and the Supreme Court, acknowledging technological and financial realities that come with it. Moving ahead, the Punjab and Haryana High Court has taken suo motu cognizance of the tragic death of a 4-year-old boy at an unregistered play school in Sirsa, Haryana. The court acted after a news report in the Sunday Tribune shed light on the alarming lapse in child safety. A division bench comprising Chief Justice Sheel Nagu and Justice Sanjeev Berry has now issued notice to the Director General of Women and Child Development Haryana as well as the Deputy Commissioner of Sirsa, seeking their response to this grave incident. According to the report, the school named Small Wonder Play School was operating without any government registration or compliance with basic safety norms. The report also highlights a broader issue. Over 50 such play schools in the Sirsa district are believed to be running illegally in clear violation of child protection guidelines. In an administrative order, the Chief Justice noted that child's death points to the administrative negligence and underlines urgent need to regulate and monitor early childhood education centers more effectively. With the matter now before the High Court, questions loom large. Who is accountable? What safeguards are being ignored? And most importantly, how many more children are at risk due to institutional apathy? In another update, the Himachal Pradesh High Court has ruled that judicial officers who appear for departmental exams without protest cannot later challenge the rules, especially if they only do so after failing to qualify. A division bench of Justice Vivek Singh Thakur and Justice Sandeep Sharma held that the petitioners in this case who were serving judicial officers were stopped by their conduct from questioning the rules they had already accepted. In the words of the court, they are supposed to be well versed with the consequences of participating in the selection process without protest. To tell you more about the issue here, 2 judicial officers had challenged Clause 6 of Himachal Pradesh Judicial Service Promotion Regulations 2005, which prescribed higher qualifying marks for in-service civil judges appearing for promotion through a limited competitive examination compared to direct recruits from the bar. They argued that this dual standard was irrational, discriminatory, and unconstitutional. But the court rejected that argument, pointing out that the officers had full knowledge of the criteria before applying and chose to participate anyway. One even asked for just 1% extra marks after failing without objecting to the rules themselves. The court cited the Supreme Court's decision in Dr. Kavita Kamboj versus High Court of Punjab and Haryana from the year 2024, which upheld different benchmarks for direct recruits and in-service officers, stating that such policy is not arbitrary nor unconstitutional. The dual system, let me tell you, was originally based on the Supreme Court's judgment in All India Judges Association, which directed that 75% of district judges' posts be filled by promotion, with 25% of those through a limited competitive exam and the remaining 25% through direct recruitment from the bar. The Himachal Pradesh High Court has framed the rules accordingly, and while direct recruits were later granted a relaxation in qualifying marks, in-service officers had to meet strict criteria, which still stand today. The High Court has dismissed the petitions, upholding the rules and sending a clear message. You cannot challenge the rules of the game after you have played and lost, especially when you are expected to know them better than most.